Hey guys, it's me, Sugar, and I'm here with my husband, Jeff.
Hello.
I was gonna add an adjective, and then my brain just kind of went blank. It's just like, just saying the normal.
I'm here with my
Delightful, enjoyable. Anywho, we're talking about the end of winter 2019, so that we can get on our way to the next season. So we'll start with our continuing Black Clover. It's been about the same in the sense of same thing I say every podcast. Same pace, interesting story, some animation issues here and there, but nothing really nasty, so to speak. Yeah, other than that, I think that's all that needs to be said about Black Clover. We talk about it all the time. So the next one, let's talk about Dororo. And that's been really good.
Yes. I think it's safe to say there's probably a 2-horse race in terms of original or new anime and what are the best this season. And Dororo is definitely in that race.
Well, Dororo isn't an original. It's
wow.
You always like to say that, but it's not.
But I mean, it's not like they're just we're just reskinning the original. It's being adapted from a manga.
Yes,
so
but it was also
Promised Neverland. I'm saying for not an ongoing series.
What? It's
like,
been going since
lots
last
of people,
season.
Well, as opposed to something like Mob Psycho, or as opposed to JoJo's or something like that, which is what lots of people would say. Like,
so
that's by far the best anime this season.
Well, Mob Psycho, like, it's its second season.
Yeah, this is not Dororo's second season. This isn't.
I'm aware. I'm just not sure what your point is.
I am saying that if you don't count ongoing series that are in their second season, Dororo is in the mix for the best, what I consider original anime.
Don't say original. It's not original. Original means it. When you're usually using that term, it's referring to not coming from a manga source.
What? No, you can use it that way too.
No! So anybody listening, this is based on a manga and an earlier version of an anime, not an original. So those that have, can I say, come out of the woodwork this year, we'll say that. We can't use the word original.
I see.
Anywho, Dororo has been really good. It's had really great animation, pretty good fight scenes. I'm waiting for a really big fight scene, kind of like Kill Bill style.
Do you mean like Kill Bill as in like him versus 100 people?
No, but I mean like a very, well, kind of like a Naruto and Sasuke fight, where it's like muted music, very well done choreography, well thought out, one-on-one, meaningful, high emotion sort of thing.
I mean...
And I don't mean like for a few seconds. I mean like for many minutes. Like an ongoing, nicely choreographed segment. I'm waiting for that moment. We've had a couple slices and dices here and creatures and you name it and demons, but I want to see that kind of Kill Bill moment. For me. I haven't seen the original and I haven't read the manga, so I don't know what we're in for, but I'm so far been really excited. It's been
interesting. Okay.
What? You don't see that?
Well, I think we've had plenty of amazing moments like that. I think we've had great
I'm not
fight
saying it doesn't have
choreography.
amazing moments. I'm just saying I want a bigger fight. I want...
Like, more emotional?
More emotional, longer lasting, more intense.
Okay.
We've had fights where, like, yeah, somebody's lost a limb, somebody's gotten a scar, somebody's whatever. But I want to see the Kill Bill moment of, like, muted music, hearing the effects around them, going fucking crazy.
Okay. I can see the desire to kind of see, but I would assume they're going to leave that for like the finale.
Oh, that's what I said. I want to see that by the finale.
Well,
that's what I want to see. I hope it happens.
My assumption is that that's coming, but you got to kind of build up to that.
I would assume so, but who knows? We've seen other anime where it's like so and so got their comeuppance before the big comeuppance, so to speak. You know. So I guess we'll see.
I would argue maybe what your argument is that you don't see like the tension ratcheting up. You don't see it'll go from an episode where it's like high tension
No,
and high
I
stress
see,
to then kind of
I see
more
things
chill.
building, but like even I can't really talk about it without spoiling things. Where like they spend a lot of time in the environment and dealing with kind of episodic, can I say, stories. Where like one episode it felt somewhat unnatural for somebody to have emotions that wavered that quickly. It's if we'd spent the time to kind of let this grow, I could be like, okay, I can see why they had a change of heart, rather than like 10 minutes later in the episode it's like, fuck you. It's like, what?
I mean,
It's like, I thought we were cool for a minute.
you do have to remember when the source material came from. Like, it's
I do
very
get it.
early, the
I do
1960s.
get it. Still, it seemed very stereotypical to be like, and now we're enemies. So it's like, okay, I can come to terms with that. I don't like that approach.
I think it's just that tells you more about that character and the way that character sees the world. So, I mean, I think that can actually be a somewhat effective storytelling mechanic.
No. No, it's not
You
effective.
You cannot like him. You cannot like that decision.
No, I don't. It's not the character. It's just the fact that it seemed unnatural to happen so quickly. I wanted it to evolve into something else where it's like you can see... Obviously, you can see why they changed their mind, but it should have been a harder decision than a few seconds. Be like, well then no. It's like,
some people see the world in black and white. You're either
my
enemy or my friend.
No, I don't agree with that. There should be...
I'm not saying that's the best storytelling mechanic. I'm just saying that is something that can be effective if it's addressed later.
It won't be. So, I know the style of storytelling, it won't be. So yeah, the art's been great, the tension's been good, the creatures have been good.
Yeah, it seems like we're poo-pooing on it a lot for it being as excellent
I was just
as it is.
poo-pooing on the one facet of the character choice of making a choice and then seemingly moments later changing it because of reasons. I can't handle the cause of reasons, but it is what it is. That's just my thing. Otherwise, I really enjoyed the latest episode. I've really enjoyed everything. That's the only thing, is just that one character's change in behavior, which was not typical of how they built him up to believe. Can I say that? So,
with no spoilers, there's a turn in character that doesn't seem
appropriate. It doesn't seem appropriate. But definitely, like we talked about it a bit before, definitely go watch it. It is a standout of the season. Definitely top 3 for us, anyways. And yeah, we'll move on to the next one. Next up is Dragon Ball Super. Really, it's just continuing with the dub. We haven't finished it yet. Basically, same old story. It's gotten a little more interesting now with the tournament, now that we're into it. But yeah, it's about the same as we've mentioned before.
Yeah, I mean, the tournament arcs are always really good. Finally being able to see some other characters kind of come into their own and different abilities and female Saiyans and all sorts of stuff like that. It's nice to see that when they expand the universe, that they could still bring in new characters that are really interesting and unique and bring something else to the series, because the main issue that I've had with Dragon Ball Z and then into Super is that unless you're a Saiyan, you're basically useless. And now, while it is somewhat fan service, they are showing that, okay, yeah, we remember that they're actually useful and they can have their moments to shine. Mm-hmm. And we'll bring in, like, you know, alternate universe type stuff with, hey, remember how great the Namekians can be? This is how great they could be if they really wanted to be. And it is refreshing to see that. And it's nice that Super kind of works itself into that, as opposed to ending on some of the other stuff that was not good to poor.
Exactly. So we'll leave it at that. I'm sure all of you have heard about Dragon Ball Super already and how we've poo-pooed on it a lot in the past. So we'll go on to the next one. which is Hinomaru Sumo. We finished that, and it was really, really good. I heat and hawed between an 8 and a 9. I sat on an 8 for a while here. I'll probably leave it at that, but there's parts that definitely make me lean towards a 9. It was a really well-told story. It was very realistic in a lot of ways, especially with, how things panned out. I'm not going to say how they panned out, but it was realistic in that way. And it was very enjoyable watching something with sumo when I never thought I did like it.
I mean, I guess as a fan of like wrestling, I've always been intrigued by other combat sports. So sumo as an art form, I was always kind of intrigued by. They actually had a legit sumo wrestler come in for one of the WrestleManias and take on the Big Show in a legit sumo wrestling match, and he just destroyed the Big Show. So that goes to show that it's not about necessarily size and power, it's about technique. And it was really nice to see the anime really take that into account. It talked a lot about technique and about there are winning techniques that are kind of frowned upon. There are ways that you can win, but the crowd will just hate you for it. And there are ways that you can lose, but the crowd will just absolutely adore you and shower you. And
with love.
Yes. And it was nice to see that all of our main characters had different styles going in, and a lot of like different reasons why they were involved in it. Some of them, I want to be competitive and I want to be pro and I want my life to be about this. Others are, hey, I want this to be part of my high school life. There's no way I'm going to be competitive at it, but this is really important to me. The team is important to me. And realistically, most of us in high school sports, that's maybe as far as we'll go. So it was nice to have that. It wasn't just about all of these amazing dynasty characters. A lot of it was, this is what I'm doing in high school. I'm really enjoying it. I want to do the best for the team. And I think a lot of people who are watching probably actually relate to that character more than the prodigy. But then there is that character who never did sumo before, got into it, and he's a natural prodigy. He's just amazing. And a lot of us can relate to having to face that person or watch that person just walk into a sport they've never played before, and they just, like almost osmosis, they just take it on and they are amazing. So it just had a really good mix of all of that. The actual like combat was very shonen, and it was really fun. And I don't know if, Demon Throw and the 100,000, blah, 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 all the names for this stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm sure those are a little conflated and whatnot. But overall, they were just an expansion of actual things that sumo wrestlers would do. So it was really well done.
Yeah, I like that they gave kind of an aura to these people that kind of had a persona in the ring, but they didn't make it like WWE in the sense of coming like cartoony almost, or they weren't like some sports anime, which I hate, is that they'll have like fire coming off of like a million, like it just gets ridiculous where they're like kicking something and it turns into like a comet or something, like in soccer. It just becomes stupid. But
Inazuma 11.
Yeah. Dear God. That drove me nuts, and I couldn't sit through it if I wanted to.
But this showed more like when they would have like an aura about them, it was more like their presence.
Yeah.
Which you understand that if you've ever played a sport before where you're playing somebody who is like really good and really intense, like you feel that energy.
Yeah. And
they did a really good job of expressing that. It's nice to see that its ratings have gone up. Seemingly, I remember when we started watching, we were very impressed, but we were also we were kind of sad that it didn't seem to be getting a lot of attention.
Right.
And the ratings were a little bit lower. We were like, this is really good, and it seems to be raising higher and higher, and more people have been giving it a shot.
Right.
So I don't know if that's because neither you or I are usually really big into sports anime, so I'm not sure if this is normal for sports anime, maybe to start off a little bit slower have to get a lot of word of mouth before it really takes off. Maybe that is, especially when it's more just about the sport.
Yeah.
You could argue that with
I find
Yuri on Ice, there was a lot of other factors that were going on that got
Sexuality.
people really involved. There isn't a lot of that in Hinomaru Sumo, but it is nice to see that different body shapes are all kind of shown to have their usefulness, competitively speaking.
Yeah.
And nobody was ever like shamed. The only person who was shamed is the main character for being so small, and he's like, I'm just working with what I was born with. Sorry.
Yeah, but even after a while, they let up on him. Like, they realize he has a lot of talent, and it's not just a thing of, oh, he's just a small fish in a big pond sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he was really good. They really give off that when you're in sports, like Jeff was saying, and you're in front of somebody who's like really overwhelming, that looming feeling. And it really showcased that very well, and like what drives each one of these people about. Like, some of them want to do it because it's something they've been driven to do for so long. It's something that they felt like they had to do, and some that find it fun, some that don't. Like, there's different reasons why these people fell into the sport and what they love about it. So it's been really interesting, and it was really good. Like, it's concluded now. I don't know if they ever plan to do another season. I doubt it, the way it wrapped up the first season, but who knows.
The other thing I want to give it a lot of credit for is it's very easy to just make the competitors to your protagonists just jerks and villains. Nobody was a villain. There were adversaries, but it was never an issue of like, well, he's a jerk and I want him to lose.
Right.
You're really, I want my guy to win, but these are just other respectful sumo wrestlers.
Right.
And as it progresses on, you actually feel really badly for whoever loses.
Yeah.
You're like,
because you get to know the people they're up against. It's not just like, oh, a faceless villain who comes in and you have to defeat them and they deserved it because they were an asshole. It's no, these other people that were also really passionate and for a long time struggled with, X, Y, or Z, whether it be their size as well or school or, you name it. And it shows their perspective to it. It's not just a one-sided, thoughtless bout. So it's really interesting.
Very well done. If you like sports anime, highly recommend it. If you like just shonen in general, I would also recommend it because it boils down to a series of tournament arcs, more or less.
Yeah, and I don't really understand why a lot of people haven't been talking about it. Maybe it's just because, like, I find with a lot of sports anime, there's like a sexual appeal, whether it be with like pretty boys, pretty girls, a weird concept, you name it, like pretty derby, something that's just odd about it.
Yeah.
Not even odd, just something that's like, obviously that's a selling point. Like Free, like that's anything,
the hook,
like I've never seen Free, but I know it's pretty boys doing pretty things. You know what I mean? I know that's what it is. Like the ones I've heard that are really good that lean more towards the serious is like, what is it? Oh goodness, I always do this. Haikyuu and forgive me, it's another one.
Haikyuu is the basketball one?
Yes, Haikyuu is the basketball one, and then the other one that's about volleyball. It begins with a K, I'm sure of it.
I know what you're talking about too.
I'll put it up later if I can, or I'll blurt it out in the middle of the podcast here. But like those are more serious. And I've watched some other sports anime, like you've seen a couple seasons ago. I tried to get into it, and some of them just get so unrealistic. And as you know, those who are long-term listeners of the podcast or just of this channel know how much I hate Welcome to the Ballroom. I can't stand that fucking show. I just can't. And it's like anytime somebody asks me to watch it, I'm like, it kills me inside because I hate it so much. I can understand why other people like it, but since personally I was a competitive dancer back in the day, it's hard for me to look at it and be like, yeah, that's enjoyable, because it's not. But anyways, Hinomaru Sumo, definitely watch it. It's finished now, so go give it a watch. As far as I know, it's partially dubbed, fully subbed, so give it a go. So the next one is Hunter x Hunter was continuing the dub, and I guess Jeff can tell you because he's experienced it more now. I watched the sub part of it already.
Yeah.
So I'll let him tell you what he thinks.
Well, the arc is done. The Chimera Ant arc completed, and we're now moving into the rest. If I can call it that. I totally get why people name it as one of the best shonen anime ever. That is one of the best shonen arcs ever. The growth of the characters is very well done. The actual combat scenarios are very good.
I had to laugh though because it was like the very first episode. Jeff's like, "Oh, I hope to God the fucking narration doesn't continue on." I was like, "You're gonna be highly disappointed."
There's a lot of narration, and I mean it is heavy-handed in what it's like, what the whole arc is alluding to. They kind of slap you in the face over it repeatedly about how terrible humans are, and you know what they're kind of
not
getting
wrong.
at. No, they're not wrong. It's just very heavy-handed. You can you don't have to have a narrator basically telling you this is the point of this arc.
And that's when he realized he fucked up.
Yeah. As we've been saying throughout, as we've been talking about it over, I guess, the past year, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
One arc does not make a series, though. As great as this arc was, Greed Island was still really bad. I found the break that they took in the middle of the Chimera Ant arc wasn't great either. Beyond introducing a couple of characters, like I love Knuckle.
Yeah.
But definitely once they get
and Shoot.
back,
I liked Shoot.
Shoot was pretty cool too.
Especially his like Jesus moment.
But it seems interesting to me that the better elements of the Chimera Ant arc don't revolve around Gon, which kind of, I find it interesting that the more the series goes on, the less I care about Gon, and the more I care about these other characters that are coming in.
Right.
And I think that's just because Gon is a very typical shonen protagonist. Like, I think that Killua is a much more interesting character than Gon is. Even the arc that Gon took, going into and finishing the Chimera Ant arc was climactic. It was cool how it ended, but he was very much a backseat player to everything. He was very blind to everything else around him. And I can see why, as the manga goes on after this point, that Gon is kind of written out, and it focuses on other characters. Like, I still want to see more of Hisoka. I like a lot of the characters that were involved in the York New. I liked the spiders, and I wish that I could see more of that. I'm probably not going to get into the manga. There's just too much.
Right.
I could see them getting back into the anime. Maybe I would assume just starting off at the end of the Chimera Ant.
I don't think anyone's going to touch that, to be perfectly honest.
I don't know. It depends, I guess.
I don't think so.
if they're waiting to have another 150 episodes of content before they go forward, then they won't. But it was exceptionally successful, which normally gives you a green flag to go. Yes, I really enjoyed the Chimera Ant arc. It's nice that the anime basically ends with that. I think we have like 12 more episodes to go before it's done, and they have a little bit coming up here, but it's a lot of like politics and stuff like that, which
the election.
Yeah, which will be interesting, but I really find it weird that that's where the anime ends, as opposed to with the Chimera Ant arc. I thought that would have been an excellent way to just end the series off there.
That's like, speaking of which, it was on Netflix, and I was like, oh, sweet, I can just watch it all on Netflix, and it's like, it ends exactly where the first fucking series ended. It was right after the tower, and I was like, why? Yeah. Why?
Right towards the end of York New, but not really. Yeah, I think it is a very good 7.5 anime. that is propped up a lot by Chimera Ant.
I was about to say, I'm sure a lot of people will be pissed to hear that.
If you compare it to Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Brotherhood never felt like it had a wasted episode, ever. And I would argue the entire Greed Island arc, beyond introducing some different Nen abilities and introducing Bisky, was pretty much a waste.
Yeah, the best arc was definitely the Chimera Ant arc. It felt like they were really giving it their all in that arc. But I did like the tower. But yeah, there were a lot of moments that really, Greed Island being one of them, where it really had a hard time.
And people can't get mad about how, because lots of people will be like, well, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood had a huge advantage because it was redoing the original. So was Hunter x Hunter. So, I mean, you can compare those two fairly well, as, opposed to some other anime. But the Chimera Ant arc is definitely worth the 140 episodes that it takes to finish up. For those who haven't started Hunter x Hunter, if you have the time, if there isn't a lot of other stuff going on, well, I mean, you only have so many hours in the day, right? You struggle with this yourself too, where there's let's say at least 24 fairly important anime that are still on your list of like, I really need to watch these.
Are you kidding? 24?
If you looked at all of the ones that you have on your list,
I think I have about 75.
Okay.
So let's be honest.
If you were to look at that list,
yes, and
how many of them are at least an 8.5 or above, I'd probably say it's like 24.
Probably
around there.
I wouldn't know at the moment.
So if your list is as long as Sugar's, Hunter x Hunter doesn't have to be the first one on that list. 150 is fairly. It's a lot.
It's a commitment.
Yeah. And if you're like us, when Greed Island comes around, it was trucking along pretty good until that. And that felt like 25 or so episodes where you're just like, oh my god, this has to end. This has to stop. Hisoka can only save so much.
I really liked Hisoka, so especially, awesome. I think that's the only thing that kind of, for me, the last kind of haul, which I'll comment about later, is like, I enjoyed seeing Hisoka again because he's so awesome.
Hunter x Hunter does villains very well.
Yes.
I'll give them that. Villains, and then, a lot of the secondary characters end up being way more interesting than Gon is, for sure.
Well, Gon's just kind of your happy-go-lucky, naive main character, so it is what it is. Yeah. Let's move on. Okay. Next one is Kaguya Love is War. Honestly, I dropped it. It's not necessarily that it was bad. It was just getting kind of repetitive for me, and it just kind of lost interest. So that's just me personally. We were talking the other day about the message boards. Some of them, it was really 50-50. Some were like, this is the greatest thing ever, so good. And the other half was like, this is repetitive bullshit and childish crap. And I was like, I'm in the middle in the sense that it was repetitive. Like, the art was good. The opener was good. I just found that it was very repetitious. It was like Groundhog's Day for me, where I was like, okay, again, we're going to go about this word game and all this kind of bickering back and forth, or not even bickering, just kind of going back and forth. And that kind of being the word play, and then somebody wins out of, their mental games. And it was just kind of like, okay, but then what? Like, it just kept going. And who knows, the ending maybe is satisfying, but that's way too long.
Like, neither of the main characters are very likable, and I know they're not necessarily supposed to be likable. I know people on message boards were like, oh, once they introduce, like, some secondary characters, they end up being really cool, and it moves the story along.
Right.
For a romantic anything, I have to like at least one of them.
Yeah.
I just have
I like the third... I like this secondary girl we meet near the beginning because she's so oblivious to everything. But that's why I like her, is because she's oblivious. But otherwise, it's very repetitive to me, and I just got bored of it pretty quick. And I realized, like Jeff was saying, I have a lot of other shit on my list, and I'd rather be watching that than something that's repetitive. So that's just me. Not saying it's bad, it just is what it is. Mm-hmm. So next up, Karakuri Circus. It's been good, but definitely
good.
It's definitely taken a turn we didn't expect. It's still good.
Yes.
But odd.
It's definitely it takes like not just one, like not 180, it like then takes like 4. You just it goes all over the place, and there's a lot of reincarnation, passing your memories into another body.
Don't get me wrong, it's starting to explain itself, which is great, but it's just kind of going in a weird way.
And everything's going really fast.
Yes,
it
really
feels
fast.
To me like I feel like maybe it should have, because it looks like it's going to have a 36 episode run,
right?
And it feels like that should probably end the series, because I don't know where they would go after that point. And
really, they should, with how crazy they've been, and be like, okay, let it die.
It feels more like, to me, they should have had 48, because very important moments happen really fast.
Yeah.
And there's lots of weird, like I said, there's like people who are reincarnations of other people. There are people who like put their essence into other people. There are people who were human and then they turn themselves into puppets. There are people who are puppets, but they have the essence of other people in them. And you kind of get a little confused as to exactly
it makes sense to me.
On.
It just took a different turn than what I was expecting. I thought, we're going down this road. And then it like splits off into 6 different roads. You're like, oh, okay.
It seems like there are a lot of different explanations for why certain people are like, they literally are another person, or they're very similar to people who lived in the past. And it all has to do with like 3 different forms of, well, I guess is tantamount to like heritage. There's 3 different ways that like people can kind of live on.
The weirdest thing I've found so far is like one of the characters, you find that obviously he put his essence into other bodies, and then when they explain that in the story, the people that he had his essence in made no sense why he would have done it. Can I say the animal? And then the fellow with the gears, like it makes no sense why he would choose whatever. It was just weird. But again, it's a trip. It's not bad. It's not as perfect as it once was, but it's still, to me, understandable, but just gone down a crazy path. It'd be like starting a series that's a rom-com. You know what to expect. It plays out like normal rom-coms do. And then suddenly you find out that, like, the female is heavy in philosophy and science, and she does all this, like, engineering, and like, this just goes off weird from where we started.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the fuck are we doing now? I don't get what we're doing now. So it's still followable. It just goes off the rails a bit. Like, definitely jumps the shark.
And, I mean, sometimes, hey, a lot of times when it jumps the shark, you're kind of like, all right, cool, like that's weird, and I don't necessarily see how that adds to the overall plot. It seems like the creator really wanted to make sure everybody was like connected in some capacity,
right?
Which for some people that will really heighten the tension and heighten everything that's happening. For some other people, they'll just be like, what is the point and when do we get there? And combat kind of takes a back seat for what feels like long stretches.
Yeah. And then there's characters that kind of just aren't there. We do get explained where they are. It's just kind of weird for them to suddenly not be there.
Yeah, or they'll focus like 3 episodes on one character and then they jump over and you don't see them for 6.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, this is the focus now, I get it. But
they feel like they should have been their own at least 6 to 12 episode arcs, and they just jammed it all in.
Yeah.
And so you get this weird feeling of like, I don't know what the point is. Like, let's hurry up. But also then you're like, whoa, wait a second.
I would never say
That
hurry
needed
up.
more.
We're going way too fast already.
Yeah, it's hard to tell what parts they really think are important versus not, because everything kind of just goes really fast.
Because that's the thing before, it had a decent pace, but it was like, oh man, that made me cry. Now it's like, I'm just like in shock half the time where I'm like, I don't know what to feel. It's
still
just going so fast.
It's exceptionally well animated. It still looks beautiful.
Oh, beautiful. Music is great.
When the combat is happening, combat is really cool. Very good use of CG for the most part.
Yeah.
There was one character where I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I get why you did it, but it
Yeah.
doesn't look fantastic. But otherwise, it's been very good that way. It's just, be prepared for it to turn 90 and 180 degrees all over the place. You're like, wait a second, alright, okay. That's fine. It's all really good. Just, if you can start this and guess where it's going to end,
I'll call you a liar.
Yeah, there's no way. Even if you listen to everything we say and the little keywords that we bring in there, if you guess the entire plot of this, no. You read a wiki first.
Yeah. I pride myself on kind of seeing ahead. And so Jeff's pretty good too. Like, he's really good on a lot of things. But it's like, we never would have guessed this is where we'd be. Like, I remember, I'm usually the one that watches ahead because just how things work in life. And I remember getting to a certain point and I stopped watching and Jeff's like, why'd you stop? I was like, I just want to get your impressions before we move on. And he's like, that was weird, right? I said, yeah, that was really weird. It's like, I just wanted to double check it wasn't just me. So I was like, yeah, let's move on. Let's keep going.
I'd still give it like an 8 to an 8.5. It's just...
Yeah, overall quality hasn't changed whatsoever. No. It's just the fact that the story is just like, holy shit, we're going this way now. And obviously the lines have paid off. Like, we've found some things out the last few episodes where you're like, oh, that makes more sense now because of what we knew before. And adding those things together now makes a lot of sense. But it's just like, going on that ramp, you can't see the purpose of going on it till you're already on it.
It's like a math equation where if you told what it was equaling, you have like 4 or 5 different variables. There's no way you would have any idea how it worked out.
Yeah.
It does. The equation works.
Yeah.
You got 5 variables that make no sense until you get there.
It's just like having a normal equation, then throwing in sine, cosine, tan, and you're like, well, shit. It still makes sense. You just got to balance things out. So anyways.
I can understand why it'll be too much for some people. I get that. If you want something that isn't going to make those...
If you want a straightforward story that's incredibly, I don't want to say generic, but like, stereotypical A to B.
Hinomaru Sumo. Great
story.
Great story. Makes sense from beginning to end. It has a couple of little surprises here and there, but everything makes
overall,
sense. Yeah. There isn't anything where it's like, oh, suddenly we're playing ping pong instead of sumo. Like, no, it all just has a nice straight narrative.
Whereas like Karakuri Circus is like A, B, J, D, F, E, Q. Like, it's like sooner or later it will even out, but we're just not getting from A to B really quickly.
And it jumps a lot between what's currently happening in the past.
In the past, yeah.
They do a lot of flashbacks. They do a good job of setting them up so you know they're flashbacks.
Yeah,
but
you're very aware they're flashbacks,
okay,
but it's just like, whoa.
We'll spend like 3 entire episodes of just flashback. It's important backstory.
It's important, yeah.
But then you're just kind of like, no, but I want to see what's happening with blank.
Yeah, and as I was saying, we were watching, it's like, Bakano did this best. It just needs to find its ground because it wants to go forward, then it wants to go back, and then it wants to go forward, then cut intermittent flashbacks, and then go back fully, then go forward. And it's like, oh my god.
And then they'll have like a flashback within a flashback, and you're like, whoa, all right, we're going even further into the past.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Like, whoa. But anywho, that's kind of the journey so far, but let's move on. So what I was going to go back really quick about Hinomaru Sumo, I was talking about Kuroko no Basket and Haikyuu. Haikyuu, sorry, is the volleyball one, and the other one is the basketball one. Clarify that really quick. Anyways, moving on. So the next one is Mob Psycho 100 Season 2. Jeff hasn't been watching. This has been solely me. It's been really good. I really like how they dove into the character of Mob a bit more, about his feelings, about looking at Reagan, about how he made his choices. Kind of the usual of, looking at ghosts and so forth, or spirits. And it's been really good. I really enjoyed it. I haven't gotten to the end yet. Obviously, I don't think the last episode's out yet as of when we're recording this. But it's been really good. I really enjoyed it so far. And that's really all I can say. If you enjoyed the first season, you'll definitely enjoy the second one. Animation's still basically on point. Yeah, it's been good.
It seems that everybody has been very happy with it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anybody talking about how they're disappointed in it. Everybody seems to agree that it is equal to or better than the first season. And really, that's all you can ask. If you continue to be that high quality, or you actually improve upon that, excellent. So it's on my list.
Yes, I've been pushing him to watch it, but he hasn't yet. So
there's a lot of anime, and I also love video games. And there's a lot of video games.
Yeah, that's the answer. Video games. You like video games, I like anime more. That's just how it goes. Next one. My roommate is a cat. I dropped it. I know I heated on last podcast. I ended up dropping it just because I enjoyed the cat more than the characters, which is an odd point to make, but it's true. And I just found it wasn't as enjoyable for the rest of it. So you're watching more than half with the person, and then the end part usually is the cat. So I just dropped it.
It's interesting that a lot of people are really enjoying it, and I can understand
I
why.
can understand, but in a season, yeah, it's okay, but overall, compared to other stuff, it's kind of
I feel like it's going to be one of those ones that I'll get the flu or something, and I just want something that is feel good. It's not serious. It's nothing that I really have to pay a lot of attention to. It's just going to make me kind of giggle and work its way through my illness, and that's when I'll watch it. I'll watch it when it's completed. It'll be oh, here's 6 episodes of this in a row. I like the cat.
Who knows? There's been different anime I've just thrown on and watched when I was 6, so I can't say that won't happen, but for now
it reminds me of a similar sort of quality as New Game and New Game Plus, which
New Game is better.
I don't know.
Yeah. Animation, story, everything.
I like the cat more than I liked anybody in New Game.
That's not true. You like blah.
That moment is one of my favorite anime moments ever. But it elicits the same sort of feeling for me. It's the same with Konohana Kitan, where
Konohana Kitan is feel good vibes.
Yeah, I recognize that it's not the best, but it's something that I can just toss on, and I will always oh, that's all right. But I'd want to watch it kind of all in a row.
Anyhow, next one. Actually, this one wasn't on our prior podcast. I kind of just stumbled across it by accident. I don't remember if it was me or Jeff, but it's called Near Death Ekoda-chan.
That was me.
Jeff's pointing to himself, so I take it that he's pretty proud. Near Death Ekoda-chan is a couple-minute long episode. It's about, I think, 5 minutes. And each episode is done by a different artist, so about 5 minutes is the animation, and then the rest of the episode, so it usually runs into about 20 to 30 minutes, because then the director and people that were involved with it also sit and talk.
The different voice actresses every time,
Yeah,
too.
every time, so different animation, different director, different voice actresses. But I really like it. It made me feel like I want to likely get into the manga, just because I like the character so much.
It's a 4 koma. Is that how it's pronounced? 4 koma?
I believe so. I'm tired right now, so it's I feel like I'm missing something. Is it 4? Yeah, right?
I think it's just 4 koma.
Yeah.
K-O-M-A.
So anyways, yeah, I really liked it. I really liked her as a character. We have a main character, obviously, Ekoda-chan, and she usually is in her house naked, and kind of her running through her thoughts and going through her daily life in the apartment, outside of the apartment, and I find a lot of things she thinks about are very true and honest. So I think I'll likely excuse me, is something I will definitely be looking into. I'm not sure how long the manga is. I haven't honestly looked, but I will.
Apparently, it was something of like, maybe not like a huge deal, but it's a well-known entity in Japan, and it's very well looked upon. And obviously, since it is, the author is being somewhat autobiographical, so it is about her legitimate life. It isn't her.
I can't say first. I cannot speak on this, so it's like if you say so, I don't know if that's true.
From my research, I'm pretty sure that it was based on an autobiographical 4-koma.
Yes,
manga.
it's based on a 4-koma, but I mean, like, if it's autobiographical, I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is based on her life, which is always really interesting and unique, especially from, somebody living as a single woman in Tokyo. And yeah, I love that the animation styles differ, the voice actresses differ, so if nothing else, it's interesting to kind of discuss, like, oh, did you like this voice actress better than the other one? Did you like this artist's rendition? I always find that a really interesting thing to do.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, like, if you're really, really interested, you can, hear from the animators and the producers and the voice actresses. And out of the ones that we watched, because I think we watched a couple.
I watched all of them.
Each voice actress seemed to have, like, a relationship with it before they ever actually got involved with the anime. So, like, it was actually important to them. And it's very unique. And the reviews are really skewed pretty low, which kind of annoys me because
I feel like most people haven't even heard of it, to be quite frank. I don't think, like, I haven't heard anybody talk about it. We fell upon it by accident. So I feel like that says a lot.
I mean, potentially. It just seems like
and I feel
there's a lot of people who just don't get it, or maybe it doesn't speak to them. That style doesn't speak to them. I don't know.
I also feel like a lot of people, whether they want to admit it or not, don't like those shorter anime that are the little snippets. I usually go through them, as I've mentioned before, when I'm like waiting for something or can't go to sleep or whatever. I'll watch a couple little short ones and then go to bed or do what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, what's the cat one? Because that one was really cute.
That is, oh my gosh, Cheese New Address and Cheese Sweet Home.
I would assume those probably have a lot better reviews. Now, granted, Chi is adorable.
Chi is adorbs, and it's super family friendly.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a lot of nudity.
I mean, like I said, I'm pretty sure it's autobiographical, so that's just how she...
Don't quote us on that, because I haven't researched that or can confirm that. Jeff says he's pretty confident, but there's been a couple times we've both been wrong, so I'm not going to verify that.
I would say it's, like, I'm 95% confident.
I'll look into it and maybe leave a comment in the video, or below the video. So I don't get like, what the fuck are you talking about?
It's not going to be for everybody, 100%, but watch, since they're short, like, watch the first 3 episodes. If it doesn't catch you by then, that's what, 15, 16 minutes? Mm-hmm. And then, you haven't even wasted an entire episode's length. If you don't like it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's enough to kind of get the idea behind it. And, I love when you just kind of stumble upon something. You're just kind of looking at a list and whatnot. You're like, wait, I don't recognize that. What is that? And so you kind of just go on and you're like, oh, well, that's weird.
That's the thing. The poster didn't really help it at all either.
Yeah.
So it's a bunch of like just characters done in each of the animators' designs, so it looks really like, I wouldn't say messy, but the poster doesn't help its cause. So definitely very enjoyable, and it was only 11 episodes. Yeah, I found it very enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
He has to still finish it, but I'm sure he will. It won't take too long. Let's move on. Next one is Pokemon Sun and Moon. It's been continuing. Again, I'm a bit behind. It's been good as Pokemon can be.
I disagree with that statement.
Well, we've had some bad Pokemon. I shouldn't say that, but I mean, it's been better than most Pokemon, but on that continual track of just keeping going. It's definitely not like the game. It's has a lot of things that were in the game, but not same storyline. You know what I mean? Which isn't uncommon for Pokemon. Yeah, it's been pretty much the same old. If you start, quality wise, same stories continuing on.
Yeah, it's middle of the road.
Yeah.
Like,
it's better than some other Pokemon seasons. I should say that.
Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum is still the best. Followed behind that by the end to X and Y. That was done really, really well. Mm-hmm. And then, beyond that, just a totally different art style, a different sort of direction. It seemed like they were going to kind of get a little bit more serious. That's what X and Y kind of seemed to be suggesting.
Right.
And then they just switch everything back around and almost feels like they reset it back to zero.
Yeah. Pokemon Sun and Moon was them saying that we're resetting it.
Yeah.
So that's what they've done. A lot of things don't make sense because of the reset. So if you're watching and you're like, that shouldn't be real, that shouldn't be happening, blah, 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 that's why.
They both reset it, but then they because Misty and Brock show up, and Ash knows them and recognizes them and everything like that. So it's this weird thing. And so they just, the creators just don't care. They're like, they're
just like, we have to keep Ash the same age or we can't keep making money off of him, so he's staying in this limbo forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what?
Let's be honest. Yeah.
Let me just go on the tiniest bit of a tangent, but not really a tangent.
Uh-oh.
Digimon.
I love Digimon.
Digimon is also made to sell the products that they're hawking. 100%.
Well, that's all merchandise.
But they create new characters. They create new storylines. They do all these sorts of things. Yes, the first 2 seasons, they brought back old characters and whatnot.
You're talking about Digimon or Pokemon?
Digimon.
Okay.
Whereas
I was like, what the hell
with Pokemon, they seem to feel this need, it would be impossible to do another Pokemon season and not have it be Ash. I'm like, yes, you can. Pokemon is bigger than what the anime is. Pokemon is bigger than even what Pikachu is. Yeah. So you could, and I think people would be really excited if you were to be like, we're going to do a new season, and it's not going to be Ash. It's going to be somebody else.
I wish they would do that, but...
And I think people would be fine with that.
Yeah.
Again, Digimon survived through that. Digimon had some crap seasons that survived through that.
Digimon had some crap seasons.
Well,
so nice.
That's true. I don't think the 4th and the 5th seasons were very good. But, and then they could do, Digimon Adventure Tri, 18 years or 20 years after the initial one. So, go back and do Ash in, 10 years and have them aged 3 years. Who cares? You can do that. Other anime have shown that you can.
I think they're just so scared that they're going to kill the anime.
Ash is not the anime.
But that's what they feel. I feel like they think that if they give up Ash, they're giving up on the series because it will die. As I saw with other people they brought in, I always forget his stupid name, the guy with the pink bandana. He was in, right after Brock and Misty. It was the guy who...
Are you talking about Tracy?
Yes, thank you. The pink bandana.
That's just one bad character.
I know, but that's what I think they're afraid of. They're like, if we have this one character that everyone hates, it's a whole fucking season. We can't get rid of them. We can't kill them off.
But, Ash is almost never the best character in the trio or the 4 of them that are traveling together. Brock was better than Ash. He always was. Brock was a much more interesting character. Ash, I guess, brings the heart, which is really nice. But you could have done Sun and Moon with this is gonna make me sound bad, but the one who's the son of one of the leaders.
Gary?
What?
Gary?
No. I'm thinking about the actual characters on the islands. The black one. He's a really cool character. He could have led this entire season, or as they've been going on with Sun and Moon, the 2 seasons. They could have 100% done him. He was really cool. He's been really interesting. Why not?
I'm not saying they shouldn't change it out. They totally should. I feel their fear of oh my god, if we switch out Ash, We could totally fuck ourselves here.
Because,
I think that's their biggest fear. Because they're like, oh, if it's a girl, people will complain. If it's a boy, well, he better have a good voice and be enjoyable, or else we can't have him the same as Ash. Like, I feel like they're terrified to touch... That sounds terrible. To even remotely think about doing anything else with Ash. Like, they feel like he has to be the center of Pokemon.
So, I mean, they got rid of Charizard. The series went along fine.
Well, Charizard's just a Pokemon. Like,
Charizard is more beloved than Ash is, in my opinion.
Well, to you, because you love Charizard.
Like, obviously they haven't ever gotten rid of Pikachu.
And they won't.
I mean, who knows?
They won't.
I mean, obviously at this point, it's been 25 years, basically. They won't.
I can say with confidence, they won't.
But they have been willing to do that. And Greninja, they removed Ash Greninja as they went back into, Sun and Moon. So they're not afraid to remove certain elements that have proven hugely popular. It's just Ash. And if Ash would grow as a character, that would be one thing. Mm-hmm. I loved in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum when it showed Ash as being really smart. And, like, he used all of the knowledge that he had gained to have a distinct advantage against other trainers. That would be great. But then they just revert him back to kind of being stupid in Sun and Moon. If we could be, like, if we could just be honest, he's kind of stupid.
I would say he's stupid. Why do you say he's stupid?
I mean, he he forgets that his Pikachu knows certain moves.
Again, rebooting,
but also him recognizing the relationship between him and Misty and Brock.
Like I said, I'm not saying it makes sense. I'm just saying that's their reason for everything is rebooting.
I mean, only for a few seasons was Pokemon ever better than some other anime that was around. Pokemon is usually...
I don't know where you're going with that.
Pokemon to me is normally like a 6 or a 7. There's been 2 seasons which I would probably rate as an 8, but otherwise it's
almost always
okay.
a 6 or 7. Yeah.
It's okay. And Sun and Moon is okay. Beware is a lot of fun.
I find it's a little better than some other seasons. I feel like there's more episodes where they take chances and do stuff, but nothing crazy.
But I also, this is me speaking as somebody who really likes competitive Pokemon, and I like seeing the strategy element as opposed to, here's another wacky adventure with Pokemon.
But that's what Pokemon has always been.
I know.
Let's go into the woods and get super fucking lost.
Again, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum had huge arcs that were all about how smart he was, how strategic Ash had become, and this whole dynamic of, there's a meta-commentary on the fact that his rival in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum is this guy who's like, oh, I caught like 4 different versions of a Rattata because I needed to find the best one, which is how you play competitive Pokemon. So it was this interesting commentary on the fact that people who play competitively, they don't get attached to Pokemon. They get attached to numbers and figures and how powerful they can be and abilities they can use.
Right.
They're about min-maxing, and that was his rival.
Right.
Whereas Ash is all about the heart and like you go with the Pokemon that got you to the dance, and it doesn't matter if they're fully evolved or anything like that. It's about thinking outside the box, whereas his rival was like, no, it's about numbers and figures and having the most powerful and most adaptive team.
Yeah, but you're looking at it critically, like, as in it making the most sense, where it's like, most people, like, put their kids in front of the TV and watch something nice. It's not how realistic it is.
It's what I want from a Pokemon anime, and it just won't ever happen.
I don't know about ever, but it's likely won't happen for a long time. Just because...
I don't hate on Sun and Moon. Sun and Moon is fun.
You just crapped on it. You're like, I don't hate. Talk about me with Dororo, and you're like, oh, I better shit on Pokemon and save myself.
No. It's what I would want out of Pokemon versus, again, having like a 6.5. I would like Pokemon to become like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. And it just seems like they're happy with it being a 6.5. And again, it doesn't alienate anybody. You can put on an episode of Pokemon, and I don't think anybody is going to be like, ooh, this is too serious now, or this is all about just competition and stuff. Like, I want adventure and things like that. I get it.
I always want more Gengar. I can
Those type
never.
Pokemon are awesome.
I can never get enough. So that's my want from Pokemon.
Gengar is a top 10 Pokemon, bar none.
I love Gengar. Anyways, let's move on. Radiant. That season is finished. It was really good. There's a couple moments animation-wise. It was kind of pokey, but 90% of the time, or even 95% of the time, is really good. I feel like I drew Jeff back in near the end because I was like, you'll like this. It's more explained. It's more, everything you complained about.
Yes. I will admit to the fact that it just didn't happen as fast as I wanted it to.
Right.
It felt a little drawn out, where I had like immediate things. And again, that's me pulling on, my past with X-Men, with a lot of other things where it's like the X-Men cartoon in the 90s,
right.
The very first episode touched on all of these sorts of things where I felt like Radiant just kind of was like, what? No, like, we don't care about that. And
it's not that they didn't care. They just wanted to get certain things out of the way and then be like, okay, let's get into the seriousness of this.
Yeah, and like and obviously like it worked out fine. I really enjoyed the first season overall. Mm-hmm. It just immediately I was like, I want to get into what I see this can be, and it just took longer than I wanted it to do. That's all.
So I was happy a few episodes later. I was like, hey, the thing you were complaining about is happening now. You might want to come and watch it if you'd like. And then he did. So he finished it.
And I was like, ooh, yes, it did mention the things that I wanted to. It is starting to really get into kind of the social elements of everything. It's getting into the inherent racism of everything that's going on there.
Racism, prejudice, biases, things like that.
It's getting into the other thing that I thought was really good that they did is early on in the series, it definitely made it out to seem that, our characters are good and they get crapped on by everybody around the world for doing good things, and these people are obviously bad, but yet they get praised for essentially being jerks.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of the season, it showed why this group who looked very evil at the start was like, oh no, like a lot of them do care. A lot of them want to do what they feel is best. A lot of them are ill-informed, perhaps, but and then they literally are like, oh, should we do this or should we help the people? And he's like, no, our job is to help the people. Mm-hmm. That is what we need to do. So they're ill-informed, they're a little misguided, but a lot of them are doing what they feel is best. So it showed that they're human. And they just have some different beliefs and different viewpoints of things. And that's fine. It just, again, it took a lot longer than I wanted it to kind of to get into that, to get into the gray area. It started off very much like black and white. These are the good guys. They're getting shit on for being good guys. These are the bad guys. They're getting praised for essentially being a bunch of racists. And then they're like, oh, okay, wait. That's not how this world works.
Right. Everything
is in different shades of gray. And yeah, I felt like the shonen elements, like the combat was really good. Mm-hmm. The escalation of abilities is really good. It does a very good thing where it shows kind of the limits that these people have in the world, because one of the beings that is considered far more powerful than the rest of everybody showcases what they can do and how powerful they are.
Yeah.
And that's something that they did really, really well with All Might. All Might was basically showing the peak of what a hero can be.
Right.
Radiant does the same thing, where it shows kind of the upper limit of the abilities of these people. And so that's always really good. I like that. It will make it so that the escalation isn't super crazy. I like a lot of our characters. I find that it has a good mix. In the second half of the season, it had a very good mix of kind of silly and serious.
Yeah.
And
More towards the second half, though, it's more serious.
Yeah, which makes sense for that arc.
Yeah.
And it left at the end. When it ended, I wanted more.
Yeah.
And that is a very good sign of a good anime.
Mm-hmm.
If it makes you want to see more. If you're like, damn, now I have to wait. I think we're getting the second season starting in October, if I'm not mistaken.
I'd have to double check, but I think
it has 100% guaranteed a second season.
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah. It's very safe. It's shonen. It's everything sort of thing in the safe category.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So definitely give it a go if you like shonen. Like Jeff said, beginning it seems very generic, but as it goes on, it's very precise in what it wants to say, and it seems like an interesting concept. I've read ahead a little bit in the manga, basically what will be happening just for some characters, and it'll be interesting, definitely interesting. So keep an eye on that. We'll go to the next one. Next is Runneth the Wind. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I thought I'd mention it now. I dropped it. Just basically, it wasn't that it was bad, it just wasn't progressing as fast as I wanted it to. It seemed to be taking its time. The characters were all interesting and so forth, but it just wasn't holding my attention because kind of the same repetitive stuff was happening. And I get that for like sports anime, so to speak. And yes, I'm considering running a sport. So just thought I'd mention that. Yeah, Jeff didn't watch it, so
I watched the first 3 or 4 episodes. It didn't catch my attention at the time.
Yeah.
When the whole like first arc, it seemed like was all about how it was like, oh man, he's a really good runner, but he does something wrong when he runs, and then they never seemed to cash in on that at all.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that was the hook that I had. What does he do? What does he mechanically do wrong when he runs? And then there's like nothing about it. It's like, oh, okay.
So let's move on. The time I got reincarnated as a slime, the season's done. It was really good.
Slime boy, yeah.
The thing I'd mention is the last episode and a half are kind of disjointed. I get they have to be told, but they should have been told at another time. Jeff still hasn't finished it, so he doesn't know what I'm referring to, but he will shortly. But otherwise, animation was good, characters were lovely, story was lovely, very enjoyable, very peaceful, so to speak. Peaceful in the sense of just kind of being good times, so to speak. There were some fights and so forth, but it was all recognizable voices, things that you found comfort in,
Mm-hmm.
A fantasy world that you are familiar with, yet not. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and
it didn't break the mold or anything, but it's been good.
Just speaking to that, we're watching the dub, except for I think the last couple of episodes you switched over just to be like, hey, the sub is done. I want to see kind of how it concludes.
Yeah.
Whereas I continued to keep up with the sub.
Dub, you mean?
Or the dub. Sorry.
Yeah, I was like, dub.
Yeah, the one thing that it does that I really appreciate is it really gives you a sense of the progression of time, where they're like, oh, I've lived here now for 2.5 years. Like, thank you. Like, thank you for making the passage of time, making us, like, aware of it. And that a city wasn't built in 3 days, you know? And your knowledge of this world didn't just come to you in, like, a week.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it was very nice to see a true kind of passage of time.
And it doesn't have to be something like very like smack you over the head with it, but like literally at the beginning of an episode, it's like 2 months had passed when blah 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 happened, you know, and it's just that casual mentioning of time, you know, just to kind of give us an idea of, okay, so this happened over a few weeks, these talks happened over a few days, these happened over whatever, so it gives it more realism, even though it's a fantasy world.
Like I like that it's almost like all of the cliches of isekai, but just boiled down into something that is
pleasurable.
Really, it's digestible. It is like, you know, really pleasant and kind of easy to watch at times. Though it knows when to take itself a little bit more seriously. It has a lot of secondary characters that you end up kind of loving, and it never writes itself into a corner. It does sometimes, like, oh, this convenient thing happened, but that's because convenient stuff happens in an isekai. That's one of the cliches.
Yeah.
And so instead of trying to subvert that, they instead like just lean really heavily into it. And even, you know, Slime Boy even says like, oh wow, well that was convenient. Like it knows, and it's kind of giving a wink to the audience. So you can pretty much guess that, oh, I doubt he's ever going to die. I don't think that there's some catastrophe that's going to happen where 3/4 of the world is destroyed or anything like that. It's going to be...
I don't know about that, but...
it's going to be him continuing onward and continuing to succeed, and we just get to be part of that. As opposed to, you know, the insulting way Shield Bros started and just bleh.
Let's not get into the Shield Hero, but anyways, but yeah, that time I got reincarnated as a slime, excuse me, got the black lung. It takes, like Jeff was saying, all the things about fantasy, but takes all the things that are enjoyable. It's not something where you're exhausted of seeing these episodes or these characters or so forth. It's very much all very pleasurable, very pleasant. Where these things you're not getting sick of, the voices you're not getting sick of, these things that are a lot of jokes and things that play really well off of each other, and they aren't a sickening isekai, because I'm getting to a point now where I've mentioned before where isekais are kind of weighing on me, where a lot of them are the same, where a guy goes to another world and finds all these hot babes and just does whatever the fuck. That's stupid. And that's just me being bitter, because I'm so sick of isekais. And this is the one where I was like, I'll give it a chance, I'll see what happens. I gave Shield Hero a chance too, and that obviously shit on itself. But at that time I got reincarnated as a slime, it kind of started out that way, the joke of him hoping to get a babe in this new world, but it wasn't what the show was about. It was about just being in this world, what you do from, you know, a game perspective of being like, oh, you know what, I would make, you know, trade available so that these things get developed. I do care about these people. I should name them. I should do this. I should do this. And, you know, the whole having a girlfriend goes on the back burner. It's the very last thing, honestly, other than, you know, the odd fan service that you think about, especially with Melly. Not Melly. That's the name from Radiant. Oh, goodness. Malim. They have a really close name, Malim, where you get some fan service from her too. But overall, it's really enjoyable, and it's more funny.
It addresses that, where like a character basically asks, like, really? Like, why do you look like that? And she's just like, why wouldn't I? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, like, obviously, you think about that. Like, obviously, it's fan service, but it's just kind of the joke of, if you are, like, a high-powered being, you don't care that much about what you dress. You just care about kicking the shit out of things. But overall, it's really enjoyable. It's really fun time. So, anyways, let's move on. The Promised Neverland. It was as good as the manga was. I'll say that right off the bat. It was exactly everything I hoped it would be. It was everything I hoped it would be, completely. I'd say there are some variations from the manga, but not enough where it like is like, holy shit, that's really different. For an example, is like Crone's doll wasn't in the manga. I'm assuming they wanted to get some of her inner dialogue out, and that's how they were doing it. Again, doesn't spoil anything, just letting you know. Like, small changes like that, just to kind of fit the tone of the anime. Otherwise, a lot of things, like, I'd say it's about 96% the manga, and a couple other variations of choosing, you know, word choice or putting certain things a certain way, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But overall, I really like that it kept the tension that was in the manga, the kind of quick cut scenes where it's like, holy shit, someone's standing there. I really like the tone. I can't wait for the next seasons. I've read, I want to say as far as I can possibly read, but I know I've kept some time open here so I can catch up and binge.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're really probably like 6 chapters behind, if that.
If that. So I'm really far. But so good. Cannot wait for the next few seasons. I haven't heard a confirmation, but I am assuming it will, because it will receive a lot of love. But as you've seen, it's made in a bit of shit can happen.
I mean, well, the difference there is that this is one of the most popular manga that is involved in Shonen Jump. So it already has a huge built-in.
Yeah, but I'm just saying things can happen. Made in Abyss, we had totally anticipated another season, and not to say it's shit or anything, but just in anticipation-wise, it's kind of a disappointment that it's going to be a movie first, and then hopefully a series afterwards. But, which is disappointing, because the whole Bondrewd arc is really good. But, anyways, The Promised Neverland is really good, made sense, really beautiful, music was really good. Excuse me. Yeah.
Like, I mean,
watch it.
Sugar and I were talking about ratings afterwards, because that's what we do. I decided to give it a 10.
Yeah.
I don't, because like I thought about it, and I was kind of waning between a 9 and a 10, and then I thought critically, I was like,
there's nothing wrong with it.
What mistakes did it make?
Yeah.
And I don't think it made mistakes.
No.
Yeah. Every episode was very tense. It made me want to just. I was like, I want the next episode now.
Yeah.
I had to fight the urge to read ahead as well, but I actually really, really value that. Mm-hmm. I think since we work kind of as a team, you reading ahead and me staying just with the anime, I think that gives us an interesting dynamic to kind of play off and see what your reactions will be, knowing some of the plot threads coming up, whereas me being entirely blind, I think there's a lot of value in that. Yeah, I think the characterizations are great. I think that the performances are very nuanced, because you can see how threatening certain characters can be, but also how tender they can be. You can see, again, it's very subtle, but the way in which they'll respond to questions, and how you can see, like, I don't know if they're lying, if they are telling a shade of the truth, or if they legitimately just believe this.
Yeah.
Because even, like, one of the characters...
Don't spoil anything.
No, I know. You mentioned the name of a character, and I will mention them too. Okay. Crone.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell throughout it. I was like, are you nuts? Are you playing off like you're nuts? Are you trying to manipulate events? Or are you just... You don't have the capacity to manipulate, and you're just crazy. And they played that perfectly, where right up until the end, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if this character is thinking things through and plotting, or if they're just reacting to things and trying to make the best out of it, or are you just nuts and you're just going that route.
It was really well done.
Yeah. The kids are...
I love Phil.
It's very difficult a lot of times to write children who are extremely intelligent, yet they're still allowed to be kids. And they do it expertly here, where they have that naivety that still comes with being a kid. Despite how intelligent they are, they still have this naivete about their situation.
Like the whole confrontation, I feel, with, can I say, the room in Crone?
Yeah.
Totally portrays the idea of, obviously the kids are highly intelligent, but still, you have intelligent adults at play.
Yeah.
And then it makes this whole situation be like, oh, fuck.
It's so tense. In every single episode, you
could hear a pin drop. It was just like utter silence.
You sit up, you pay attention, you want more as soon as it's done.
Yeah.
And like I said, that is combined with Dororo. Those are the two best anime that are not ongoing. Because lots of people will argue JoJo's or Mob Psycho.
Right.
Out of stuff that is
continuing,
those would be the two best. These are the two best newcomers. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's rare to have that kind of 1-2 punch right off the start. I think we go back and forth between which one was better, between Dororo and Promised Neverland.
And it's so hard because The Promised Neverland is very much an A to B story. Like, it has a story to tell, it's going to tell it, and that's what it is. Where Dororo has, like, an overlying story, but then you also have episodic episodes and then people that he bumps into on top of the other story.
Yeah.
So, it is still a good story, but it's hard to judge a story that's very direct versus one that's kind of scattered, but is also direct.
Well, like, Dororo reminds me a lot, and it wouldn't surprise me to hear that Cowboy Bebop took a little bit of inspiration from that style of storytelling, where yes, there is an ongoing arc,
Purpose,
and everything that happens goes
it's leading up to it,
goes towards that.
Yeah.
But some stuff that's just happening is like, well, this is just something that they encountered, in this month, and where that it does inform the rest of the narrative.
Yeah.
You could also, some would argue, like, well, I didn't see how important that was. It's like, well, you'll see.
It's important to his character, not necessarily the story,
Yeah.
And it's good. So that's the thing. Those are the two best of the season that are standing on their own, so to speak.
If you had to compare those two to Mob, which of those three are you enjoying the most?
It's different because Mob Psycho, I really love. Initially, I never thought I'd like it because of the artwork. It's not necessarily up my alley, but it's really honest and sweet and funny. You'll see me laughing throughout most of it. I laugh. And, I find that really enjoyable. And, like, a lot of moments are really heartwarming and it's delightful. But at the same token, then you have something like The Promised Neverland that's totally serious and right up my alley, where it's dark, it's mystery, it's a thriller sort of thing. And then you have Dororo, which is kind of, in a way, one of my favorite movies, Kill Bill, where it's somebody trying to get vengeance unknowingly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're all different in their own way. If I'm talking about straight enjoyability, it's Mob Psycho. I could sit and watch it anytime, any day. It would make me laugh. It would make me cry. It would make me get upset, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm, like, in the mood for a thriller, it's totally Promised Neverland. It's really great. And then if it was Dororo, it would have to be in a bit of a darker mood, because it is darker. I was telling one of my friends, it's kind of like an off cousin for Berserk. It's not necessarily as gory, but it's definitely in that same vein of just slicing the shit out of everything and nothing's off the topic, where it's death and starvation and like a lot of things that they're not afraid to touch.
Beyond the inclusion of demons or whatever you want to call it, it's actually oddly historically like relevant to
a lot of things in history.
That time period where it's somewhat romanticized when we think of like, oh, the samurai age and these wonderful samurai heroes. It's like
it's a lot of
them were
burning villages
horrible people who were just like, I have to listen to what my vassal says that I have to do, and it's like, you did horrifying things.
It was war, the shit that you do during wartime sort of thing. But it's darker. So each one's a different mood. But if I'm saying across the board, probably Mob Psycho, because it's an anytime anime for me. But overall. Yeah, that's what I'd say. Sticking to my guns for that one.
It's interesting to have a season of anime where you could argue that you might have 3 10s.
You never know. Well, let's keep going. So those are kind of our thoughts on everything from last season. We'll be going forward to the next season. Some of the things we'll be looking forward to is, for me, Fruits Basket. I've always loved the show, and I can't wait for it to be done in its completion.
I'm not saying that I'm not excited for it. It's Sugar and a friend of ours really built it up for me, and talking about how
Jeff watched it. He's like, it's not that great. The animation's not that great. It's like, it's older. It's like, you have to give it its due and don't be a little pissed.
It was fine, and I was watching it until we got the notice of like, hey, it's going to be redone.
That was an easy out for him. He's like, oh, there's a new one. I'm just not going to stop. I'm just going to stop watching.
No, I'm excited to see what they're going to do with an extra. It seems like they're going to have a higher budget. It seems like they're going to follow the manga more closely, and
finish it.
Being part. This is something that, again, not to go off on a huge tangent, but being part of the zeitgeist is one of the best things about, being a part of your channel and about being really active with watching anime. It's not going to mean as much to me watching. We're waiting for the Netflix version of what's it called? Evangelion. Evangelion's going to get tossed onto Netflix. They said they're going to clean up some stuff. They might actually recast and do some other voice work and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean as much to me because I'm not going to be part of when it was all happening. That's the same thing with when you're like, oh, okay, can you watch Fruits Basket? And as I was watching it, I was like, nobody's talking about it anymore. It doesn't mean as much to me because it's not currently airing. Mm-hmm. Everybody is going to be talking about Fruits Basket.
He's a seasonal boy now.
There is something to be said for being part of the discussion with everyone. Again, I'm on a message board where there's like 12 to 15 of us that are just constantly talking about what we're watching, mm-hmm. what is really interesting us and what isn't, and beyond, what I do on your channel as well. There's a huge part of being part of the zeitgeist. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they were like, oh hey, Fruits Basket they're going to redo it, mm-hmm. and they're going to do it, better. I don't know if you want to, say it like that, but I'm like, okay.
It'll probably be better.
I watched, I think, 6 episodes of Fruits Basket. Uh-huh. It was enjoyable. It was fine, but now I want to be part of that zeitgeist. I want to be part of it as it goes on.
Yeah, I expect you to be.
Yes, I will. I'm excited to be.
No, I'm not forcing him. I just like him to watch it. Anyways, the other ones we're looking forward to is Old Jeff is looking forward to One Punch Man. I am a little bit nervous after
Everybody seems to be nervous.
The trailer, especially not having kind of early videos or pictures or anything of the show. It changing hands is a little scary. We'll see.
Well, I mean,
we'll see.
The hands that have it now were still part of. They were one of the many groups that were involved in it. The only thing that's given me pause so far is that in the preview or the trailer, the way they made Genos look, I was like, okay, that could probably use some work.
I'm nervous.
I get why people are going to be nervous about it, but I also wasn't one of those people who, when I watched One Punch Man, I was like, that was good. I never once thought, like, this is one of the greatest deconstructions of anime ever or anything like that. I was like, that was enjoyable. So that's what I'm expecting from the second season. I'm not expecting it to be the second coming of the greatest anime ever made.
I never said you thought it was the coming of Jesus. I just said you really enjoyed it.
It's sort of like I tempered my expectations for Steins Gate Zero. I was like, it's impossible. It is impossible for them to capture that level of surprise, and you could have made it just as good as the first season and people would have still been disappointed. One Punch Man season 2 could be just as good as the first season, and people would still be disappointed because they'd be like, well, it didn't up the ante, it didn't eclipse. And so I feel like with me being like, it was like a 7.5, it was an 8, it was really fun, I enjoyed it. As long as I get that out of the second season, I'm not going to be disappointed. I'm not expecting a 10 because I don't think the first season was a 10. There was cool action sequences that I'd be like, well, that was a 10 out of 10 action sequence, but the anime as a whole wasn't a 10 for me. So okay. I'm not expecting One Punch Man season 2 to be a 10. I'd be really shocked if it was. When you already know, oh, it's about Saitama punching things to death. Cool. I'm in.
Oh, Lord. And then I will definitely be watching Attack on Titan. Last season kind of gave it some redemption for me, so I'll be continuing on.
And what was it that, like, they showed a trailer for the game that totally spoiled everything?
I wouldn't say everything, but a lot of what happened last season and this upcoming season, and people were just pissed right off. So do not watch the Japanese. I believe it was the Japanese game trailer for Attack on Titan. Do not watch it, for the love of God.
Whoops.
If you care about spoilers. What else? We'll be watching Kimetsu no Yaiba. That'll be the one with the brother-sister demon slaying, you know. So
give that a
that's
shot,
new
see
for
how
us.
she goes.
yeah, we've heard some good things, so excited.
Dororo, Karakuri will both be continuing on next season.
Yeah.
So.
We also will be doing, I believe we said it was an original Carol and Tuesday, that music one. Looks interesting, kind of movie quality.
Made by the same people who made Bebop. So, that, as soon as you tell me that, I'm 100% in.
So, and there'll be a couple others we'll likely be getting into, and we'll let you know later what those will be. But for now, those are kind of our main definites that we'll be hitting up. And again, we'll do a podcast letting you know either our normal 3 or 2. We'll see how it plays out, depending on how they kind of land and what we get from them. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. You can let us know what you thought of this season. And for now, thank you, Jeff, for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. Always. I want to be part of the zeitgeist.
So until next time, we'll see you later.